Hello everyone, welcome to Court with Krissy. There are two new cops on this operating impaired crash. Will their bare bones investigation skills be enough to get a guilty verdict from the bench? You'll have to watch and find out. And deputies, next time a possible drunk driver pees in front of you, I think you should give him a public indecency charge. I hope you like it. Court with Krissy is now in session.
Mrs. Moore is here on behalf of the state of Ohio. We're scheduled for a trial by jury. My understanding is there's to be a waiver of the trial by jury, and the defendant's electing to have this tried to the bench.
Yeah, I don't have a form.
Yeah, can you go ahead and grab a jury waiver for me, please?
So grab that.
So, Mr. Douglas, your attorney's indicated that it's your intention today to give up your right to a trial by jury. You're not required to. You have a right to a trial by jury. But have you discussed the decision to have the matter tried to the court?
Yes,
with Mr. Kalsaric, and are you in agreement with that decision?
Yes, sir.
Was any pressure or any improper inducement brought to bear upon you to give up your right to a trial by jury?
No, sir.
Okay. Mr. Kalsaric's going to fill out a form entitled jury waiver. If that is your decision, go ahead and sign off where he indicates. All right, I'll sign off on the jury waiver, and then Ms. Kyle, I'll have you file stamp this before we get underway.
Yes, sir.
And as she's doing that, Mrs. Moore, is the state ready to proceed today?
We are. We would designate Deputy Stewart as the state's witness.
Any objection to the designation, Mr. Kalsaric?
No, sir.
All right. Anything else to be brought to the court's attention by the state before we get underway? Mr. Kalsaric, anything else on behalf of the defendant?
No, sir.
All right.
Oh, there are priors involved. We're not contesting the priors. So if you just want to go through it without any
You're
big
stipulating.
ceremony.
You're
Yes.
stipulating to all of that.
Okay.
That's
And the
helpful.
records reflect that the jury waiver's now been executed and file stamped as of 9 a.m. Mrs. Moore, you may call your first witness.
Thank you. I would call Deputy Stewart to the stand.
Deputy, please come forward and be sworn.
Yes, sir.
Do you solemnly swear or do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Please have a seat, sir.
Yes, sir.
For the record, you're going to give your name and spell your last name
Deputy Hayden Stewart, STEWART,
and the address of your employer.
155 East Main Street in North Ohio, 43055.
You may inquire.
Thank you. Deputy Stewart, where are you employed?
The Licking County Sheriff's Office,
And how long have you been with the Licking County Sheriff's Office?
almost a year now.
Okay. And on January 12th, 2025, were you on duty for the sheriff?
I was.
What were your duties that day?
Patrol,
What shift do you work?
second shift,
All right. When does it begin?
4 p.m. to midnight.
And on that date, were you wearing a uniform like the one you're wearing today?
I was.
Were you operating a cruiser with working with this visible light bar?
I was.
And is that cruiser equipped with a video recording device?
I was.
And were you also equipped with a body camera?
I was.
And was it working on the day?
Yes, it was.
Now, Deputy, can you tell the court what training you've had in the detection of someone under the influence of alcohol?
I have the NHTSA aquatic course, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. I believe it's a 40-hour block.
Okay. Now, how old are you?
25.
25, okay. Outside your experience as a deputy, have you had a chance to see someone under the influence of alcohol?
I've been around people going to bars, that's about it.
Okay, but you've had a chance to see someone under the influence of alcohol?
Yes.
All right. Have you run into anybody under the influence of alcohol on duty?
Before, yes.
Okay. And what kind of things are you looking for?
Bloodshot, glossy eyes, incoherent speech, mumbling, stumbling. So like frequent hand motions, confuse. People that do abnormal things that usually like a normal person wouldn't do.
And have you observed that different people show different signs of impairment?
Yes, that's correct.
Now, on the date in question, how did you come into contact with the defendant, Mr. Douglas?
So a witness had called her in to 911 saying that there was a car that had been crashed out,
Okay.
and that the person that was driving the vehicle had
Objection.
Basis?
Here's the thing.
Mrs. Moore?
I don't believe he's offering it for the truth of the matter asserted. I think he's just talking about how he ended up at the scene. But because witnesses haven't testified.
So it was just a crash, that was called it.
Oh, okay.
Objection, for the record, the objection will be sustained.
And where was that crash?
It was on Cedar Run Road, I think it was 244.
And is that in the township of Newark, Licking County, state of Ohio?
Yes, it is.
All right. And do you remember approximately what time you arrived at the scene?
I do not remember.
Okay, if I show you your citation, would that refresh your recollection or as when you were dispatched?
Yes,
Okay, or your statement?
yes, either one.
Okay. Thank you. May I approach?
You may.
I'll show you what's been marked as Penny's Exhibit number 4. Can you tell me what that is?
Okay. Says at 1727.
Okay. And would that have been your time of dispatch?
Yeah, that seems about accurate.
Okay, and did you arrive shortly thereafter?
Shortly thereafter, yeah, I was over there off of Dayton Road, so it took me about 5 or 6 minutes to get there.
Okay. And when you arrived at the scene, just remembering that, you know, we can't say what witnesses said, what did you observe?
So I observed so I came up from Fallsburg Road. As I'm coming up on Cedar Run Road, I noticed before I entered the corner there was a car that was in the ditch to the left of me. So I obviously wasn't on the correct side of the road, so I had to circle back, and then that's when I noticed the car had visible damage when I stopped.
Okay. And when you observed that car, what did you do when you got to the scene?
So I just tried to figure out who was driving the car and if they were okay. That was mainly what I was trying to do, because when I got there, nobody was around the vehicle.
All right. And eventually, were you led to an individual at a address at 422 Cedar Run Road?
I was.
Okay. When you ran the registration, do you remember who that came back to on the vehicle?
On a Douglas.
Okay. And do you remember what the address was? And you have the citation that you issued to the defendant on the day in question in front of you, Plaintiff's Exhibit number 4?
I do.
And did you also obtain his address?
I did
And what was his address?
as well.
Okay. So I'm going to play a portion of the video, and I want you, and we haven't started at the beginning for evidentiary purposes, but I want you to let me know if you recognize this video.
Yep, I do recognize that.
Okay, what are we looking at here?
That is the car that was in the description that had crashed out. And that was the car that, when I arrived at the scene, that's what I seen.
Okay.
You say that's been marked as States 1?
This is States 1.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, as you walked around that vehicle, what did you observe?
On the ground, I had noticed several alcohol containers on the ground.
Okay, now we see that there's snow there.
Yes, sir.
And were these alcohol containers, did they appear to be on top of the snow or in the snow or embedded or anything like that?
So some of them towards the front driver's side in the front of the car were laying on top of the snow.
Okay, so like they had just,
Yep.
they were not there prior to the snow, correct?
That's what I observed, had
Okay.
observed.
Now we're gonna skip ahead a little bit.
We'll see where he thinks.
And what are we looking at here, Deputy?
So this is the house to where that was in front of the car. So I just walked up there trying to figure out who the driver was.
Okay.
Were you the driver?
I didn't. I was up to fix it.
What did he say to you?
No.
Okay.
Hey, where you going? Sir, where you going? Stay right here. What?
Your Honor, for purposes of the record, we understand that there will be someone else making a statement. We are not offering that for the truth of the matter asserted, but during that portion of the video, he's also talking with the defendant.
Any objection, Mr. Calcier?
I don't know.
Wait to hear it. All right. If an objection is made, the court will rule on it.
Why is he not talking?
Because he knows I fucking hate him right now, and I'm done with him. That's why.
I mean, you just got in an accident, man. I need to know if you're okay.
I'm good.
Can I get your driver's license on you?
No.
Okay. You want to play that game? Okay. All right.
Why?
Stay right there for me. Huh?
What do you need to?
Huh?
What do you need to?
I need your driver's license. I need your proof of insurance. If you fail to provide those things, I'll have to cite you for it.
All right.
Have you had anything to drink today?
No.
Are you sure? Are you sure? Because there's 2 empty Mike's Hard Lemonade bottles right there outside of your car.
Mike Hard no, those are not Mike Hard Lemonade bottles, sir.
Okay. All right. Stay right there for me.
What were you noticing about the defendant at this point?
So he seemed standoffish in his speech. I had observed it kind of seemed like he was struggling to form a sentence. He just felt, I mean, his hand motion when he was handing me his driver's license, like, kind of seemed like he was struggling to hand it to me. I mean, that was really all I had observed at that point.
Okay. So what did you do from here?
So I, just asked him for his driver's license and proof of insurance, and then I just continued my investigation.
Now, at some point, did you go back to try to talk to the defendant at the scene?
I did.
Okay. $32,751. Will you start the next available 31? The RO is not going to have any company she wants, just a rollback in the ditch. Sir, did you want to fill out a statement? Now, you went to go talk, is this the property owner at 422?
Yes.
Now, it's hard to see on body camera, but as you went to go talk to him, what did you observe the defendant doing?
I observed him urinating beside the camper.
Okay. And then what happened when you came back around?
So when I turned back around, he was right behind me.
Okay.
Did you want to fill out a statement? Because you said you...
I was up chick coop getting eggs.
Oh, you didn't see nothing?
I didn't see nothing. I didn't hear nothing. I come out and I seen him stop down here, and I thought, what the hell? So I looked a little further, and then I seen him.
Okay. Okay. You're doing all right, though. You have no injuries, right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. What's going on, man? You seem like you don't want to talk.
I'm good.
Okay.
Is this how the interaction with the defendant continued?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I want to go back to when we watched that first video where you asked for him as his ID, and he walked past you. What was in his hand at that time?
It was a white, appeared to be like a grocery bag. appeared to be a silver tumbler, like a Yeti. I couldn't determine what brand it was.
Okay.
Um,
And what
and
did he
some
do
clothes.
with that bag?
He handed it to his wife, Anna, or
Okay.
Anna. Go ahead. It's about 5 feet.
I want to stop right here. Did you notice any marks off the roadway from that vehicle traveling off the road?
Yes, it was coming around the corner, so from the opposite side I came up, so it would be coming up from, like just past the Possum Hollow side, coming up around the corner.
And do you see that in this video?
I do.
Okay, can you point out where that is up on the big screen? Okay. And who did the crash report on this case?
Deputy Finley.
All right.
Go ahead. You're clear. Finley. Like. Yeah.
Run it back. What did you observe there on the ground?
So that one, that Mike's Hard Lemonade, it appeared to be somewhat in the like fresh snow. So that one probably was there, but the other bottles that were around the car definitely were on top,
And where were they?
on the left side of the car. So
On the driver's side?
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So he.
Okay. And then this is Sergeant Ramsey, correct?
That is correct.
And at some point, you both decide to go back and speak with the defendant one more time, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Took a bag from him, so.
So this is his address right here, this 422.
No.
Where'd his wife come from?
She lives on Brentwood. I already got her ID and everything. And she wouldn't.
What's the objection, Mr. Calseric?
Hearsay.
What statement is to
It's
hearsay?
gonna, I don't know what's coming. To be honest, I don't have it memorized, but there's a conversation between two officers being recorded.
Mrs. Moore, your response?
We're not offering for the truth of the matter asserted at this point. I think they're discussing what he's observed thus far before they go talk to the defendant again.
Well, given the fact that the court's been able to view the events that they're discussing, and the state's not actually offering it to prove that whatever they're saying is true, just what they believe, I'll overrule the objection on that basis.
tell me what was in the bag. So. I don't know, because he already had the bag with him in the car, like in his hand. As soon as I went to walk up to him, she came and grabbed the bag and took off. And then I told her not to leave, but.
She did?
Yep. But, so I got all her information. She was like, nothing's in the bag. I was like, okay.
That sounds like borderline obstruction.
Right, Dan, you're
So-
weaving.
Um,
The court will ignore the irrelevant.
I'm gonna cite him for failure to provide insurance, and then failure to control. So,
Well, that's,
but one step at a time. I know. I'm not trying to jump ahead of myself. I'm just not really good at this portion of it. So
and this is your other driver, correct?
he just drove by and called it in.
Okay.
Okay. So, you still doing all right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Face me a second. You sure you haven't had anything to drink?
You want to talk to my attorney?
Because I can smell it on you.
You want to talk to my attorney? I can call him right now.
Okay.
Here. Let me
We're not
call-
doing this right now.
Nope. Let me call my attorney
Okay.
right now.
Detain him.
All right. You are currently being detained. So we're going to do field sobriety tests on you.
Nope. I'm calling my attorney right now.
Are you
Okay.
refusing to do field sobriety test?
Yes, I'm calling my attorney right now.
Okay.
Copy. All right, hang up.
Put your phone down.
Yep.
Put your phone down.
Yep.
Put your phone down.
Here.
phone down.
Here.
Put your phone down.
Here.
Put your phone down. All right. You are currently under arrest. All right. I'm about to put 2 handcuffs on you. Yep.
Now, Deputy Stewart, can you tell the court why you placed the defendant under arrest at this time?
So on that day, it was really windy. So I had him face me, and then that's when I got the strong odor of alcohol off of him. And then, I asked him if he wanted to do or perform standardized field sobriety tests, which he refused. So then he was placed under arrest.
Okay. And can you tell the court what all you took into consideration from the very beginning to him being placed under arrest that you believed him to be under the influence of alcohol?
So from when I arrived, obviously there was a crash. So obviously that could be a big factor in it. Then when I walked up to him, he was standoffish. His incoherent words, the mumbling, the hard words that seemed like he was hard to say, and then handing the bag off and not really saying much. I mean, and then the alcohol bottles aside, but I think that was mainly it.
Did you notice anything about his eyes? Did you?
I mean, they were glossy.
Okay. Now, at this point, you placed him under arrest, and where did you take him from here?
Took him to my cruiser.
Okay. And before we go there, how many traffic crashes have you covered in the year that you've been here? Can you make a guess?
I'd probably say about 20.
Okay. And in those instances, when someone has wrecked their vehicle, what's a typical behavior of someone when you arrive at the scene?
Very talkative. Usually it depends on the person, but some people are frightened. Some people are crying. Some people are angry. But nobody has ever not talked to me.
Okay, so this was unusual for you.
This was unusual, yeah.
Now, what else did you observe about Mr. Douglas after the arrest?
So when I can I speak on placing him in my car?
Sure.
Okay. So when I placed him in my car, that's when I actually could smell the overwhelming odor of alcohol. And then, I mean, that was mainly it. He still really didn't want to talk.
Okay. Did you ask him to take a breath test?
I did.
And what did he do?
Refused.
Okay. And where did you go from there?
So I or the B&V 2255, and then he refused, and then police shut the door, and then transported him to another location that was off the road, so that way I could do the citation and finish the B&V 2255, and then I took him to the Lincoln County Justice Center.
All right. And during the time that you're with the defendant in your cruiser, did you continue to notice the odor of an alcoholic beverage?
I did.
All right. And when you got to the jail, did you make any further observations?
When the jail staff came out to Sallyport, and we exited him out of my vehicle, when he was standing still, he was swaying back and forth and almost lost his balance, to the point where I had to reach out and grab him.
Okay. Could I just have a minute, Your Honor?
You may.
Thank you. Are you going to stipulate to the B&B report for his crimes?
Yes.
Okay. He's going to stipulate to the B&B report, so we would ask that that be submitted. That's been marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit number 3.
Is that correct, Mr.
Okay.
Kelsier? All right, very well. Court will accept the stipulation and admit States 3 into evidence.
And the person that you came to know as Sean Douglas, is he in the courtroom here today?
He is.
Can you tell me where he's seated and what he's wearing?
That chair right there.
Okay. Can you tell me what he's wearing?
Gray polo, black pants.
Okay. Thank you. Let the record reflect the deputies identify the defendant.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Record will so reflect.
I have no further questions at this time.
All right, Mr. Kelsier, cross-examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Deputy, I've got a few questions for you. So, did you ever talk to anyone that told you the time of the accident?
Can I speak on the?
Oh,
Well,
you
you asked
don't
her
ask
the
her.
question.
You look at me.
No, I'm just asking because the witness. I believe he wrote that in a statement, but I can't.
Okay. So no one saw the accident though, right?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay, so then they wouldn't have known what time it happened, most likely?
I believe that's accurate.
Okay. So do you know when's the last time the motor vehicle was moved?
I didn't know.
Okay. Now, when you got there, what was the condition of this vehicle? It had been involved in a crash, right?
That's correct.
And some of the airbags were triggered?
I believe, just from looking at the video, I believe that's true.
And then it looks like the vehicle hit some trees and spun around and was facing the opposite direction of where it had been coming from, according to your investigation?
I didn't investigate the crash. Deputy Finley did.
Okay. But you were there and you pointed where the tracks were, where he came off the roadway and everything?
Yes, that was my observation.
Okay. So he came down the road, hit the trees, spun around?
That's my observation, yes.
Okay. All right. And it's during winter, so there's snow and stuff on the grass, right?
Yes, that's true.
And do you know the last time it snowed? Because there's none on the roadway. You know how long it had been since it snowed?
I don't remember.
Now, you observed Mr. Douglas walking towards his wife at some point, and you asked him to stop after he passes you, right? Okay. Because you're trying to figure out what the heck's going on.
That's correct,
right?
yeah.
All right. So then you questioned Mrs. Douglas about Mr. Douglas, right? At some point?
I did.
Okay, okay. And that's when she tells you he knows I'm upset at him, right?
I did.
Okay. All right. And at that point, you don't smell an odor of alcohol or anything, do you?
On who?
Well,
So,
anyone?
so from that point, I was just clarifying what you were saying.
Okay. Okay. And so during that initial contact with him, you don't notice of an odor of alcohol, right?
No, I don't, because I said it was really windy that day.
Okay. And then have you ever spoken to Mr. Douglas before?
I had not.
Okay. So you never met him before, or seen him before, right?
No, that's correct.
Okay, so you don't know his normal speech patterns?
I do not.
Okay. You don't know whether or not he's got anxiety or some personality disorder, this is the way he behaves?
I'm not aware of any.
Okay, all right. And you don't know his feelings towards the police? He didn't have a conversation with you about the police, right?
I did not.
Okay. Now, you see a bunch of alcohol bottles in this ditch. Sounds like more than two, right?
Yeah, there was.
Some of them were covered in snow, some of them weren't.
Yeah.
So it looks like they've been dumped there over a period of time, some
So-
older than some.
Okay. So, I mean, from my observation of that video, that was evidence, that my Chart lemonade bottle, I said that one looked like it was already in the ground. But the other ones that are around the vehicle, I don't know if I remember if I took pictures of them or not. Those were just laying on top.
Okay.
So, I mean, they were right beside the vehicle. So I kind of figured, from my observations, if a vehicle would...
Well, let me ask you this question. There were other kinds of bottles in that area too, right? It wasn't all just Mike's Hard's lemonade.
Yeah, there was other bottles.
Okay. So it looks like this is an area where people are irresponsible and throw their litter in the area, correct? There was other litter, other bottles there.
Yeah.
So it looks like something that's happened over time, chronology, right?
That's,
Okay. Now he asked to call an attorney when you start asking about field sobriety tests, right?
that's correct.
And he tries to call his attorney, but you stop him, right? And arrest him at that point.
That's correct.
Okay. And he wasn't allowed to contact his attorney for advice after he was arrested either, right?
I'm sure he did at the jail.
But right there, when he wanted to finish answering your questions, he didn't have a chance to consult an attorney before answering your questions, right?
That's correct. And then when I placed him in the
Okay.
car, I read him his Miranda rights.
And as part of those Miranda rights, it emphasizes your constitutional rights, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Right to remain silent.
That's correct.
And you'd also agree he has got a right to refuse to submit to any field sobriety test too, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, his car was impounded because you had to get it out of there. You had to get it towed, right?
His car was immobilized, yes.
And so after it was removed from there, I assume before it's removed, it has to be searched?
Not
impound?
Not searched. It was to inventory the items in the car. So,
What do you do to inventory the items in the car?
you just photograph and,
Search the car?
I mean, if you want to call it a search, I don't.
Okay. When you do that, do you find any bottles or anything in the car?
I was not aware of any, but I also did not conduct that.
Okay. So you didn't conduct, but no one else came up to you and said, hey, we found alcohol or drugs in the car, right?
No, nobody did.
And assuming it's an investigation and an OBI, they would let you know that unless they're incompetent, right?
I would believe so, yes.
All right. All right. Now, the arrest decision was made only after he refused field sobriety test, right?
That's correct.
So why not arrest, if you know you have enough probable cause to arrest him before he refuses field sobriety test, why don't you?
Because I still was investigating, and the moment I walked up to him and actually could smell his breath, that's when I actually made my final decision.
Okay. So you walked up to him, you could smell his breath, he refuses field sobriety test at the same time, correct? Or is it before or after? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
So I walked up and was continuing investigating, and then I made that decision after I smelled the alcohol.
Okay. So the additional factor that led you to effect an arrest was the odor of alcohol?
No, that's incorrect.
Okay, what was the trigger there that led to the final straw that led to him being arrested?
It was the totality of circumstances, including that.
Okay, so the last thing that you learned was the refusal of field sobriety test then?
Could you clarify? I guess I'm not understanding.
You
your
said
question.
it's the totality of circumstances. And you could make me draw out every circumstance, but I really just want to get to the end. Okay, so when you have contact with him initially, you decide not to arrest at that point, right? You don't make an arrest.
Because I didn't have enough evidence to arrest him.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to get at. So as you collect this evidence, what was the final trigger that led you to effect the arrest?
Okay, it was, I mean, like I said, it was just when I walked up to him and just everything added up to that and the odor of alcohol, that was it.
So the final thing was odor alcohol?
I guess you could say that, yes.
Well, I kind of want you to say it. Was it the odor alcohol or was it the refusal of field sobriety test? Because those are the two things that are going on right before the arrest is effected.
Right. So he refused to do standardized field sobriety tests, so that's why he was under arrest.
Okay. And there's no legal requirement to do field sobriety tests by any driver, right?
When you, as far as I'm aware, when you sign for your license to B&B, you're
Okay.
required to conduct standardized field sobriety tests, and if you
Okay.
don't,
Now, you filled out a 2255 form, right?
I did.
And you didn't fill out the basis for
I'm
your
gonna object, Your Honor. I think
arrest
this has
on
already
that
been
form.
dealt with by the court through the ALS appeal. I'm not sure the relevance here today.
Well, we
Well,
also
I'll hear
talked
it.
about the
I'll
refusal.
reserve ruling on the objection, but go
Well,
ahead
that
with
he
your line.
refused to take a test.
What's
He
that?
didn't mention suspensions or anything else, so I'm not sure how this is relevant.
So,
As I said, I'll reserve ruling until I see where this is going.
as part of that form, it has a section on there where reasonable grounds for arrest, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And in this case, you didn't fill anything out in that area, you left it blank?
Yeah, I thought I had filled it out, but I left it blank.
Okay. Now, the bag that you're talking about that you saw being handed from Mr. Douglas to Mrs. Douglas, you easily could have asked, hey, can I see that first? Right?
I could have, and I
Did not though, right?
I did not when I first met her, but when I walked back up to the car the second time, I asked her for it. She told me nothing in there has evidentiary value.
Just real quick, to rule on the objection, I'm going to overrule it only because the question was asked to elicit whether or not he recorded any of his observations. It has nothing to do with whether or not it was a refusal or not, so the objection will be overruled. You may continue, Mr. Kalsaric.
Once you decided to effect the arrest and take his phone away from him, he was cooperative with being handcuffed and placed in the cruiser, though, right?
Yeah, he was handcuffed. He was helpful the whole time. He was not fighting or he was compliant.
Okay. And, did you search him thoroughly then?
I did.
Okay, do you have to, I forget, is this one of those ones where you took his shoes off and stuff? Search his feet? I forget. Do you
Yes.
remember?
I can't remember if I searched his shoes or not, but I patted him down before I placed him in the car.
Okay. And no trouble?
No trouble.
No further questions, John?
All right, redirect, Mrs. Moore.
Thank you. Did you say that you weren't sure whether or not you believed that you searched his shoes?
I can't remember.
Okay. Would looking at your statement refresh your recollection?
Yeah.
Do you recognize this portion of your statement?
That does sound familiar now.
Does that refresh your recollection or
That
no?
does.
Okay. And you observed something while you were searching his shoes, is that correct?
Objection, leading.
Did you observe
True.
anything when you were searching his shoes?
Sustained, rephrased, it's fine.
Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I did.
What did you observe?
So he was swaying and he wasn't really kind of like listening to instructions. Like I would tell him to sit down, he stood up. But he was swaying the whole time, so.
Okay. Did you actually remember whether, let's just part. Let's make this simple.
Hold them up.
Actually, I don't know if you're actually going to be able to get in on my side.
On that this side.
Yeah, I go. You can go on this side.
Can you pat him real fast?
Yep. Actually, yeah. Let's go to the front.
Stay over here behind. Just so y'all know what to keep trying to drive.
You're fine. All right. You got anything on you
No, sir.
that's gonna stick me, poke me, or anything like that? Okay.
Yep, I'll stand right here and then that makes a nice barrier.
All right.
If they hit me, I'll probably cry.
Just letting you know, if you bring anything into the jail that's illegal, any drugs or anything like that, you can get a felony charge of illegal conveyance. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Can you? I'm gonna take off your shoe. All right.
Yep, whatever you need
Okay.
to do, sir.
All right. Hold on.
You want me to do it?
Okay. All right.
There's nothing, sir.
Okay. All right.
Sir, there's nothing
Come on.
there.
I know. I'm just afraid you're gonna fall over.
No, there's nothing in those shoes, sir.
I still gotta check your shoes though.
I
Let me
understand.
show you an easy
Yeah.
way.
Okay, so you actually moved him.
I did.
Why did you move him?
For safety.
Okay. And what did you notice about him that made you want to move him?
He was swaying forward. I was afraid he was gonna hit his head on my hood of my car.
Now, when you were talking to the defendant and he was trying to call his attorney, was he under arrest at that time?
Yes.
When he first pulled out his phone and called his attorney?
I mean, from my recollection, he pulled out his phone, was calling his attorney, and then I placed him under arrest.
Okay, but he did that first. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Now, he asked you about what was the final straw, like what made you place him under arrest. But can you go through from when you arrived on the scene, everything that you took into account that led to the arrest after you were smelling alcohol and after you refused to do field sobriety test?
Yeah, okay. So, when I got to the scene, he was not with the vehicle. He was away from the vehicle. And when I introduced myself and tried to investigate, he didn't want to talk to me. He was having, seems like, problems talking. He, like the nose kind of seemed like they were having trouble coming out. And then the alcohol bottles on his side of the vehicle. And then him handing him a bag with a Yeti tumbler to his wife. And then, I mean, just the totality of all that. I mean, the way his car was when he crashed, I mean, just from my little short investigation, seemed to me like he would have had to been going over the speed limit or another improper, like, intoxication or anything else beside that would have caused that. So, and then when I walked up to him, I smelled a strong odor of alcohol, and then his refusals to do SFSTs. And that's when I placed him under arrest.
And, you know, there was some conversation about the bottles, and we don't have those photographs here today, but what made you think that those were from his vehicle? Like, what made you think those were fresh and not had been there over time?
So the way his vehicle had entered, clearly you could see one of those Mike's Hard Lemonades, the green one had snow all over it, which that one wasn't taken accounted for in my investigation. I just took photographs of it. But the other bottles were laying on top of the snow. So I mean, I don't remember if it recently had snowed, but if a vehicle comes in contact with the snow, it's going to throw some snow on it. I mean, especially the way he came in at that angle. I mean, no other bottles had snow on them. They were laying on top of the snow.
Okay. And how would you describe this roadway here? Is it busy? Is there a lot of traffic at this time of day?
There's a lot of traffic.
Okay. And you said that when you received the dispatch call, you arrived within how quick?
About, my estimation is about 5 to 6 minutes.
I have no further questions.
Any recalls?
No, sir.
All right, Deputy, you may step down. Thank you very much.
I would call Deputy Finley to the stand.
Very well. Deputy, please come forward and be sworn.
Do you solemnly swear, do you affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of perjury?
Yes.
Please have a seat, sir. For the record, keep your name and spell your last name,
Deputy Tom Finley, Finlay,
and the address of your employer.
155 East Main Street, New York, Ohio.
Thank you. You may inquire.
Thank you. Deputy Finley, how long have you been with the Licking County Sheriff's Office?
6 or 7 months now.
Okay. And do you have any prior experience as a law enforcement officer?
No.
No, this was your first job as a law enforcement officer. What training did you receive to become a law enforcement officer?
The academy.
Okay, and what is the academy?
CFTC, the police academy.
Okay, and what did your training entail there?
Everything from traffic stops to law.
Okay. Did you have any courses in just basic traffic crashes and making reports?
Yes.
Okay, and what was that?
We had report writing and NHTSA.
Okay. Now, did you do the traffic crash report on January 12, 2025 involving the vehicle belonging to Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell the court what you observed on that day?
Yeah, so when I showed up on scene, it looked like the road's 25 miles an hour and there's a sharp curve, and they got sharp curve signs. And from the looks of the accident, the car was going too fast around the curve, took the signs out, hit a tree, and then spun the opposite direction, where it finally rested off the side of the road.
Okay. You said that there were signs that were hit.
Yes.
Do you know how many?
3.
3. And then a tree was hit?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there was snow on the ground, is that correct?
Yes.
Were you able to observe the path the vehicle traveled off the road?
There were marks where you could see the vehicle went off and hit the sharp curve signs, and then the tree, and then spun.
And obviously on that day, were you wearing a uniform like the one you're wearing today?
Yes.
Were you operating marked cruiser with a working visible light bar?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Cross?
No questions.
All right, Deputy, you may step down. Is this witness excused?
Yes.
You're free to leave, Deputy, or you can remain and continue to watch the trial if you wish. Any additional witnesses on behalf of the state?
We have no additional witnesses at this time, Your Honor. I would move for admission of Plaintiff's Exhibit 1, the citation, which is number 4, and the B&B 2255.
So I have 1 being the video recording, 3 being the B&B 2255. I don't have a 2. I don't recall any.
No, I think it's 1, 4, and 3.
Okay. Mr. Kalasaric, any objection to any of the state's proffered exhibits?
What was 4?
The citation. Right.
Objection.
All right. Okay, 1, 3, and 4, admitted without objection. Does the state rest?
Yes, Your Honor.
All righty. Mr. Kalasaric, does the defense wish to make any motions or present any, call any witnesses or present any evidence?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Closing argument, Mrs. Moore?
Your Honor, we would ask that the court find the defendant guilty of OVI and failure to control. The defendant was traveling down Cedar Run Road when he went off a curve, hitting 3 signs, hitting a tree, and spinning out. Upon arriving at the scene, Deputy Stewart did observe alcohol bottles laying outside of the vehicle, and while some appeared that they may have been there, he testified today that some appeared that they were freshly there on top of the snow, and based on the crash and the ground around it, appeared that they had just been put there. Upon having contact with the defendant, he would not speak with him. He told him at first that he wasn't the driver. He denied alcohol consumption, but would not speak with the defendant any further. During that time, he observed the defendant with a grocery sack in his bag, which he handed to his wife. One of the things that fell out of that was a tumbler, a silver tumbler that the officer observed, which seemed an odd thing to the officer, that he would be giving away property in a bag to someone else at the scene of a crash, and then seeing drink containers in that bag. Upon asking if he had his driver's license, he again told the deputy no. But as the deputy walked away, he then did produce his license, although he had trouble getting it out of his wallet. He also, the deputy asked him about the bottles around the vehicle. The defendant denied those were his, but had trouble saying words as he was speaking with the defendant. Specifically had trouble talking about the brand name of the bottle. The deputy then came back after speaking with his wife, came back to the scene, and as he went to speak with the homeowner, he observes the defendant peeing behind the trailer out in front of where the homeowner was and in front of everybody else. He then again asked the defendant if he was okay. The defendant is just saying one-word answers to him, which the deputy said was very odd for him because he's been on approximately 20 crashes at this point. And you know, people who are simply involved in a crash do not respond to him in this way. In fact, this is the first time he's had someone respond to him in this way, and he took note of that. He then made observations about the vehicle, like Deputy Finley did, that it did come off the curve. Deputy Finley testified it hit 3 signs and a tree before coming to rest. The registration on the vehicle matched the address of the defendant, and was determined it was his vehicle. Again, upon asking the defendant if he had had anything to drink, at this point, Deputy Stewart went downwind from him and observed a strong odor of an alcoholic beverage coming from his person. He asked him if he had anything to drink. Again, he said no. Are you sure you haven't had anything to drink? At which point he pulls out his phone and attempts to call his attorney. At that point, the deputies make a decision to detain him for purposes of the investigation. They ask him to do field sobriety test, and he refuses, which the deputies are allowed to take that into consideration as to whether or not they believe he is under the influence of alcohol. He was placed under arrest. He was requested to take a test and refused to submit to a breath test. During that time, the deputy made further observations about the defendant, that he appeared to be off balance, that he was swaying back and forth. He was trying to search his shoes, but observed the defendant swaying to a point where he thought he was going to hit his head, and so he moved him to the cruiser. Once the defendant was in the cruiser, the deputy testified that he continued to notice a strong odor of alcohol coming from his person. That continued all the way to the jail, where he observed the defendant to be off balance, and testified that he actually had to grab his arm at one time because he was fearful that he was going to fall. So based on the totality of the case, Your Honor, the circumstances of the crash, his refusal to take a breath test, refusal to submit to field sobriety test, his appearance, his demeanor, we would state that the defendant was under the influence of alcohol and would ask for a guilty finding. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Moore. Mr. Calcer, closing argument?
Briefly, Your Honor. Mr. Douglas probably was considered by most people, especially in law enforcement, to be obstinate at the time of this investigation. But the reality is the Constitution gives Mr. Douglas those rights. He's got a right to remain silent. He's got a right to refuse any tests, and he invoked those rights. Obviously, we don't know why he did, and we know he's been through some stuff related to this because of the stipulations, Your Honor, or maybe he feels that he was screwed over in the past by the police. We don't know. You might believe, know, think, possibly guess that someone might be impaired, but it must be proven by proof beyond a reasonable doubt. That's one of the benefits of this system. That's one of the benefits of the Constitution, allowing him to refuse everything if he chooses to refuse everything. Now, these alcohol bottles that were talked about that's been beat on is a tough sell. I'm kind of surprised at the time spent on it, because obviously some people regularly use that area of the roadway to discard their empties. There's empties that looks like they're from every different age in that ditch, Your Honor, and just because one's not covered with snow does not attribute it to Mr. Douglas. I submit that there's barely enough evidence in this case to even get him charged and arrested for OVI, let alone get him convicted by proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Some issues that were talked about were not proven on video or in other forms, such as the swaying and balancing issues. I looked at the same videotape. Only time I saw him sway or balance, it looked like someone was trying to lift his other leg up to take his shoe off. So I don't get it. I think you have to look at some of the credibility and biases to the types of questions and answers that were given, Your Honor, and the different way questions were answered from the state versus the defendant's counsel. And I think the court should take all that in consideration and, again, just couching it in terms of looking at proof beyond a reasonable doubt and knowing what the tests are and what the standards are. It's not there. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, and did the state wish to avail itself of rebuttal?
Well, the defendant does have the right to refuse to do field sobriety tests. That evidence can be used against him as well, including his refusal to take a breath test. Certainly someone who has not been consuming alcohol or didn't believe they were under the influence could take a breath test, could submit to field sobriety test. He chose not to do it. And I think you can't also ignore the circumstances of the crash. This gentleman went off the road at such a speed to take out 3 signs and hit a tree. And when the officers arrive, he doesn't even want to speak about it. That leads me to believe that there's something he's trying to hide. Yeah, while he does have the right to not do field sobriety tests, he has the right to not take a breath test. That, by case law, can be used against him as well. So we would ask that you take that in consideration.
Okay. Can I take a brief recess before I come back and render my verdict?
All rise.
Okay, please be seated. All right, the court has heard the evidence and the arguments of counsel. Well, I mean, I'm not saying anything surprising when I say this is a bare-bones investigation. The deputies did not develop a lot of evidence. There was no real taking control of the scene in the court's opinion, as I've seen in other OVI investigations. And as I'm listening to the evidence, I keep waiting to hear, of the observations of consumption impairment. I find credible the testimony that the defendant exuded a strong odor of an alcoholic beverage. And then I start to think to myself, well, how would I instruct a jury on how to determine whether or not the defendant was under the influence? And you both know the legal definition of under the influence. This is the one that gets the court's attention, and it's the last sentence in that instruction. If the consumption of alcohol so affected the nervous system, brain, or muscles of the defendant so as to impair to a noticeable degree his ability to operate the vehicle, then the defendant was under the influence. The court feels that there is sufficient evidence to establish that he had consumed alcohol, and since there was an accident and he was the driver, it's impossible to say that it didn't affect his nervous system, brains, or muscles to a noticeable degree to impair his ability to operate the vehicle because he crashed. So even though it's the probably slimmest of margins of beyond a reasonable doubt, I do find that the state has met its burden here, and I'm going to enter guilty findings on both of the OVI offenses and the failure to maintain reasonable control. Mr. Kalasaric, would you care to make any statement in mitigation before the court proceeds to sentencing?
Yes, Your Honor, my client is gainfully employed. He's works for Midwest Retail Services. He's been there for a year. That's actually where he was earlier in the day, was going to Columbus to get stuff with Microsoft for his business, Your Honor. We would ask that, I think minimums would be appropriate in this case.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kalasaric. Mr. Douglas, you have a right to make a statement if you wish before I make any decisions, although you're not required to. Is there anything you'd like to say, sir?
No, sir.
All right, very well. And Mrs. Moore, anything from the state on the matter of sentencing?
No, Your Honor, we defer the court.
You own the business?
No, sir.
How long have you worked for it?
A year.
A year? Okay. Now, are you from Newark originally?
No, sir, I've been here about 10 years.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Enid, Ohio.
Okay. Is that Greene County or Preble?
Greene County.
Greene
Or,
County.
it's Mad, I can't remember, sir.
It's west of Springfield. It's like,
Right.
yeah,
Yes,
so,
sir.
okay.
Yes.
And how long have you been, you said you've been here about 10 years?
Yes, sir.
How long have you and your wife been married?
Or my son, so about 17, 18 years.
I'm assuming, Mrs. Moore, that the state is electing to proceed on the A2?
Yes, Your Honor.
Date of the offense was January 12th, I think. Oh, jeez, I screwed that up, didn't I? Mr. Kelser, does he have any jail time credit coming? Did you spend the night in jail?
No, sir.
You bonded out immediately that day?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know how long you were actually at the jail before that happened? Was it more than an hour?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You've already shown proof of insurance, have you not, Mr. Kalsaric? Actually, no, I think when I was thumbing through there, I saw an entry denying because it had not been submitted at that time. Well, if it hasn't been, it'll need to be submitted to the clerk so that the defendant avoids an extra suspension here. Having entered guilty findings and proceeding on the state's election of the refusal charge, And given the fact that the parties agree that this constitutes a second offense within a 10-year period, the court's going to impose mandatory minimum penalties, 180 days, all but 20 days suspended. I'm going to put down credit for time served because the jail can calculate credit, I think, to the hour as opposed to the day like I would be able to. So I think the defendant deserves credit for any time he was in custody. 1-year probation starts today. He's to undergo a drug and alcohol assessment, continue with any counseling until released in writing, no use of alcohol, drugs, or use of prescription medication. He is required to submit to a drug or alcohol test if requested by any law enforcement or probation officer, needs to maintain suitable employment, and follow any other rules the probation department sets. Fines $525, that's the mandatory minimum. Costs will be assessed. 1-year license suspension from the date of the offense on the 12th of January. Defendant is eligible to apply for limited privileges, but as I said, we'll need to get proof of insurance before that can be considered. On the failure to control charge, it's going to be a $25 fine. The defendant will be given time to pay, and he'll get the details from the clerk's office. I'm assuming he's going to be asking for a report date, Mr. Calcer.
That is correct, Your Honor.
All right, about 3 weeks out or so.
Sounds good.
Let's see, today's the 3rd. There's never a convenient time to go to jail. I'm assuming, do you work 6 days a week?
I'm sorry?
Do you work 6 days a week, like Monday through Saturday, or just mainly Monday through Friday?
Monday through Friday, but I'm the IT lead, so I'm on call as well.
Okay, so that's what you do for them? You do their IT work?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All righty. Well, let's have him report on Friday, April 25th. That's about 3 weeks from now. Now, Mr. Douglas, you're going to report here to this courtroom, not to the jail. The bailiff will give you written instruction on what you need to do. Make sure you show up, because if you don't, it's considered contempt, and your probation can get revoked. You could end up getting another 30 days on top of the 180. So I'm not telling you this because I don't think you're going to show up, because if I didn't think you would, I'd just have you taken into custody now, but I want to make sure that you understand how serious it is if you don't. Now, you have the right to appeal my verdict and my sentence. You have a right to have a notice of appeal filed on your behalf within 30 days of today's date. You have a right to obtain a transcript of the trial and any other relevant proceedings in your case, which are required to pursue an appeal. And you have a right to be represented by counsel throughout the course of your appeal. If you qualify as indigent, you can obtain the transcript at no cost to you and be appointed counsel to represent you at the state's expense. So that being said, sir, do you have any questions either as to the sentence that I've imposed or your rights to appeal?
No, sir.
Anything further, Mr. Calceric?
No, sir.
Anything else, Mrs. Moore?
No, Your Honor.
All right, very well. That'll be all. Court will stand in recess.
Here's the
All rise.
Kerman.
Okay.
Oh, I missed one.
Yeah, I didn't, this is the only one I paid.